Chapter number 6 of the Financial Playbook for Gen Z. Let's jump right in. Chapter number 6, auto invest into a Roth IRA stock index fund. The key is to automate your investing so that you don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember to invest every month because with the automation, the monthly investment happens automatically. Now, let's talk about Roth IRA index funds, right? Now, first, what is an IRA, an IRA? What is an IRA? So an IRA is an individual retirement account. There are several different types of IRAs. Two of the most well-known types are traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs. So what is a traditional IRA? Well, with a traditional IRA, the contributions are tax deductible, but the withdrawals from the account are taxable. So when you're contributing, you're able to take the tax deduction, but when you reach retirement age and you're withdrawing the funds from the accounts, those withdrawals are fully taxable under a traditional IRA. But under a Roth IRA, the contributions are not tax deductible, but the withdrawals from the accounts are not taxable. So therefore, it's the trade-off. So for a Roth IRA, you don't get the tax deduction regarding your contributions into a Roth IRA, but during retirement, when you're withdrawing the funds from the accounts, the withdrawals are fully tax-free. So you can end up saving a lot of money through a Roth IRA. Now, that's why I prefer Roth IRAs, because although the contributions that you make into a Roth IRA are not tax deductible, the account grows tax-free. There are several different types of investments that you can put into a Roth IRA. The type that I prefer is a index fund, right? An index fund, a stock index fund. Now, what is an index fund? In general, an index fund is a portfolio of stocks or bonds designed to mimic the composition and performance of a financial market index. A stock is all the shares by which ownership of a company is divided. A single share of stock means fractional ownership of the company in proportion to the total number of shares. Now, what is a bond? A bond is an agreement to lend money to a government or a company for a certain amount of time at a fixed rate of return, right? Now, I prefer stock index funds instead of bond index funds because the returns are higher if your time horizon is long enough. So bonds are very, very safe, right? But the returns on a bond is not as high as the returns on, a stock index fund, right? Now, here's the thing though. Stocks though are risky, much riskier than bonds. And stocks, they go up and down, but over the long term, right? A stock index fund over the long term, they always go up. They always go up. So that means if you're not able to let the money stay in the account for at least 10 years, then you should not be getting involved in like a stock index fund because it's risky in the short term, but over the long term, it always goes up. Now, notice I'm focusing on stock index funds, right? Because a single stock is very, very risky, right? Like a single stock represents just one single company. And the price of the stock is dependent on the performance of that one single company. So that's too risky, right? But a stock mutual fund, right? Like a stock index fund represents a collection of multiple companies. And so the price of the stock mutual fund, right, is not dependent on just one company. It's diversified. You have diversification in a mutual fund. Now, there are different types of stock mutual funds. the type that I prefer is a stock index fund because they simply invest in a specific list of stocks that pertain to a specific market index. And therefore, they are not actively managed by an investment manager. And therefore, the fees regarding stock index funds are lower than the fees regarding regular mutual funds. Because a regular mutual fund is actively managed. And so they have an investment fund manager who's actively managing the fund. And so therefore, the fees can be very high, right? Because of that active management. But a stock index fund, just simply follows a specific list of stocks, right? And so the fees are very low because it's not actively managed, it's passively managed, right? Now, how to choose the right index fund? You might be wondering, how do I choose the right index fund? Well, you have to do your research. You have to compare multiple index funds, right? Number one, look at what is the minimum investment requirement to open up the account, right? Because, some companies have a minimum initial investment amount, and other companies don't have any type of minimum initial investment, right? So you want to look at, what is the minimum initial investment that's required to open up the account. Number two, look at the expense ratio. That's very important. Look at the expense ratio. You have to look at the expense ratio because you want to see what expenses are involved in this account, right? Because the expense ratio, of course, is going to impact your return, right? Because it's coming out, it's the expense ratio represents the amount of expenses that will be deducted from your account, right? So for example, if the expense ratio is 0.02%, then that's $2 for every $10,000 invested. That's a very low expense ratio. I would say anything under 0.05% is good and low, right? So you want a very low expense ratio, right? Because you want to maximize the return that you're getting from your investment. And that's the thing that you have to watch out for, because a lot of these financial investment vehicles, there's a lot of hidden fees in a lot of these vehicles. So you have to be careful that you understand what fees are involved. So the expense ratio, you want to make sure that the expense ratio is under 0.05%. Now, number three, try to avoid all transaction fees, right? A lot of times you can avoid transaction fees. And when you can, avoid them, right? Now, number four, look at the type of market index the fund is tracking, right? Now, the most popular index is the S&P 500 index. So you want to look to see what index is that index fund tracking. Now, how do you invest in an index fund? Like how specifically do you invest in an index fund? Well, you have to open up a brokerage account, right? So you want to research and compare several brokerage companies and choose one that you determine to be the best fit for you. Make sure that you choose a brokerage company that is the original provider of the index fund that you plan to invest in. For example, when doing your research, suppose that you find an index fund, so let's say the Fidelity Index Fund, right? That tracks the S&P 500, right? So if you want to invest in a Fidelity Index Fund, it's best to choose Fidelity to be your brokerage company, right? Or if you find a Vanguard index fund that you really like, right? Then in that case, it's best to choose Vanguard to be your brokerage company, right? Because that way you can avoid unnecessary fees, right? Now, number two, invest through your brokerage accounts. Now consider setting up a Roth IRA account as well as a non-retirement account. You should consider having both a Roth IRA as well as a non-retirement account. And this is big. Make sure you set up a monthly auto investment function so that you're investing automatically every month. It's called dollar cost averaging, where you're investing every month into your investment accounts automatically. That's huge because that way you don't have to think about it. It's just you're investing on autopilot, right? And that's amazing. Now, chapter summary. The key is to automate your investing so that you don't have to think about it. Also, regarding a traditional IRA, the contributions are tax deductible, but the withdrawals from the account are taxable. Regarding a Roth IRA, the contributions are not tax deductible, but the withdrawals from the account are not taxable. An index fund is a portfolio of stocks or bonds designed to mimic the composition and performance of a financial market index. If you're not able to let the money stay in for at least 10 years, then you should not be getting involved in in the stock market, right? Because it's risky in the short term, but in the long term, it always goes up, right? These stock index funds always go up. Now, action item. Research and choose a stock index fund that you would like to put into your Roth IRA account. Also, compare the fees of stock index funds with the fees of regular mutual funds. Also, compare the performance history. Discussion questions. 1, what stock index fund did you choose? 2, what expense ratio does it have, and how does it compare with regular mutual funds? Now, I have a quiz for you. Number 1, what is a Roth IRA? And what is a traditional IRA? Number 2, why is a stock index fund better than a Roth? No. Why is a stock index fund better than a regular mutual fund? And final question is this. How do you open a Roth IRA stock index fund?